Welcome to our town. Dorothy Thompson speaking to you today from 7th Street, which is a new street, something we don't get often here in Richland Center. And on the show, we'll find out about what's going on in the United Methodist Church. Talk to Pastor Rachel Olson. Well, we had the opportunity to speak with Pastor Rachel Olson, and we'll find out what's going on in our local United Methodist Church. Well, first of all, I'm happy to have the opportunity to get acquainted with you. Can you share with our audience a bit about your background, where you came from, and how you came to be here?
Yes, okay, yes, and thank you so much for having me. I am formerly a United Methodist pastor. I was a United Methodist pastor for 20 years in the Wisconsin Annual Conference, and I served a number of churches in that time. Methodists, they move us around quite a bit, so I've been in big church in Madison, small church in towns that probably very few people have heard of. And served a total of 8 different congregations before. And then a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something different. And I left ministry and I went back to school and I studied nonprofit management and economics. And then did some work working with a couple different nonprofit organizations in Milwaukee and Madison, and then when COVID came, at that time I was working for a place called Holy Wisdom Monastery in Middleton, and when COVID came, my job was discontinued because it had mostly to do with outreach and event planning. So then I didn't know what I was going to do, and I got an opportunity to do some philanthropic consulting work. I went to Peru for a month, I went to Scotland for 7 months, and then I went to a place called Barichara in Colombia for almost a year. And so that brings us to most recent. And then, I wasn't really planning to come back to pastoral ministry, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, and I was prayerfully asking the powers that be to guide me, and I got a message from the woman who is the district superintendent, who is someone that I've known for a long time. We started in ministry together. She posted something, I think it was LinkedIn, it was social media, but she said the Southwest District, which is where we are, of the United Methodist Conference in Wisconsin, is short of clergy. We need clergy help, and so I thought about it and I contacted her and I said, well, I'm not United Methodist clergy. I'm actually now ordained as an interfaith minister with the Interfaith Temple in Washington, D.C. They hold my ordination. And so I said, I'm not really part of the Methodist circle anymore, but I still remember how to do this work. And as it happens, my background, while I was pastoring, I ended up working with churches that were going through different transitions that sort of lined up with the kinds of things that are happening here. And so I just said, I'm available if you want to talk. And so the annual conference of Wisconsin said, yes, we would like for you to come and help us. So that is how I ended up being here.
And how long have you been here in Richland Center?
July 1st was the day I first arrived.
Okay.
I've been here before. I have connections in the Driftless area. I have good friends in Viroqua, and I went to seminary in Dubuque. So I've been through this area, but never really spent a lot of time here. So very, very happy. I wanted to. One of the things that attracted me also to this area is that I knew I wanted to come back to this region. So the idea that there would be a meaningful job for me, something I could do that was meaningful, that where I could make a contribution to something that I think is important. So the way I look at it, all the little pieces sort of lined up, and it just was clear to me that this was the right path for me at this time. So here I am.
Well, we've heard, talk around town about that there are changes going on. You hear a variety of rumors and versions, but I bet you know the inside story.
Well, I do, and it's not, even though it has recently sort of come to a head, the conflict within the United Methodist denomination has actually been going on for a very long time. It's funny, I always laugh at that we call ourselves United Methodists, because the truth is Methodists have never really been particularly united by anything historically. I mean, the denomination goes back to, before this country was even a country, and has grown along with the United States. It's been a parallel process. And so as we see in the country at large, there are really two very distinct ways of looking at things, and it expresses itself politically. I don't like to get into the politics of it, because I actually think the issues at play are bigger than that and deeper and go beyond that. But we see that there are some people who, from the way I look at it, there are some people who are very committed to the idea that the way forward is to circle around and go back. That they're very invested in tradition and history and this idea of we were better before, let's go back to that. And then the other group of, the other side of it, I think, are people who are more like, no, what was isn't where, the way forward is forward, the way forward is ahead. And that's how I see the cultural divide. And that has existed in Methodism, in the United Methodist Church, since long before I became part of it. There are folks who are really wanting to lean into the sort of older traditional way of doing things, and there are other folks who feel as if we really want to move forward and look at things we haven't seen before. And those two ways of looking at things just have tried to coexist for a very long time, and have finally reached the point where I think they've decided that they can't, because it's kind of holding everyone back. So the United Methodist Church has decided that because they can no longer balance these two polarized points of view, that they are going to look to make some changes. And those folks who don't want to make those changes have been given permission to opt out, and what they're calling a disaffiliation. They're being allowed to take their congregations and either be independent or go. I understand that there are a number of these more conservative congregations who are gathering and becoming maybe a new denomination called the Global Methodist Church. I don't have a lot of information about that, but this is what I've heard. Whereas those folks who are really more interested in continuing the forward projection, they are staying with the United Methodist Church. And so that has come to pass here in Richland Center. We've had a vote recently. Both of the United Methodist churches had an opportunity to decide whether or not they wanted to stay. And both churches, both Peace United Methodist Church and Trinity United Methodist Church, both voted to stay with the United Methodist denomination. However, there were enough people in, especially Peace United Methodist Church, who were very committed to the idea that they did not want that. And when the vote happened and the churches chose not to leave the denomination, the people who wanted to leave the denomination left the church, and they are off doing something else now. And I haven't met these people, so I don't know any more about them, but we all do wish them hoping that they find what it is that they need and are looking for. But that leaves the rest of us.
And that's what had happened before you came into the picture.
Right before I came into the picture, that was all happening. So I knew this was happening. But what that means is that we now have two churches, one of which is quite a bit smaller, and both churches are, they're aging, the historical churches, and the idea is that this is a time where, now that all these changes are happening, maybe this is the time that these two congregations could come together. It's not, and more than just a unification. The idea is they would come together and they would begin a new church together, probably within the same building, because we all believe that Richland Center has enough church buildings. We don't probably need to make any more. So we'll stay with one of the buildings, bring the two congregations together, regroup, and kind of think of this as almost like a rebranding. We are still committed to the United Methodist denomination, but we really would like to look at this as an opportunity to look at the future, to honor the past, but to really say, what is the purpose of the United Methodist Church in this community, and how can we take this process, which in many ways mirrors what's happening in the rest of the country, how do we take this and offer our experience to others who are also struggling with these same senses of the kind of polarization and having trouble kind of finding a path into how to get along peacefully, how to be civil, so we're kind of hoping that we can take this experience and turn it, make it public facing, turn it to the world and say, hey, we've been through this. We have found a path through this. If anyone is interested in seeing how that happened, celebrating resilience, celebrating hope and possibilities in the future, then they would be invited to come and check us out.
How do you approach something? This is not just within the Methodist Church. I mean, throughout our nation, we hear a lot of division at the moment. How do you approach this yourself to bring the people together and try and develop a positive way forward?
Well, that's a very good question, because I don't claim to have all the answers. In fact, I claim to have very few answers. I rely on my own faith life to inform me, and I spend a lot of time in prayer and meditation, asking for guidance for how to be a non-anxious presence. I think that one of the things, there's an abundance of agendas out there. When people are engaging, they're engaging because they're trying to get somewhere. They're trying to convince you of something. They're trying to sell you. So I've decided that I don't need to have one of those. My job is to come, to listen, to help people, not tell them what to do, but help them find the way that really works. And I'm not sure we know exactly what that is yet. I think it's a process. So I guess my answer to that is I am trying to just be very present, be supportive, bring a message of love and healing and compassion, and trust that as the path will emerge. Maybe it's a little bit like driving in the dark with your headlights on. You can't see very far ahead, but if you can see just far enough to keep going, that's right now how I'm sort of feeling about it. I don't have all the answers, but I do feel like if I show up, that if we all show up willing, open, with faith, we're going to be surprised. There's going to be little miracles, and it's already happened.
So are the two formerly separate congregations already meeting as one, or is that something yet to be?
They're in conversation. Both churches are still holding their services. Now these churches they've been separate and different, very distinctive identities, but they have shared a pastor for quite a while now, because pastors have become expensive, really, and so it's enabled them to have be efficient, to share a pastor. So they've had that for a while now, So I think in some ways they've been slowly drifting towards each other, but they still are functioning separately, and there's nothing been officially decided yet. We have a vote to on this proposed unification. Both churches will vote on September 24th, and after that, they will, if the vote is approved and both sides, both churches say yes, then they will begin the process of unification. If either church decides this isn't the right way to go, there's a contingency plan for that as well, and I can't say too much more about that because I think that in some ways that's not really my story to tell at this point, but just to say that either way, we're going to move forward and with as much hope and happiness as we possibly can get, with, recognizing that this has been very hard for people who have lost members, friends, people who are looking at having to leave behind a building where maybe they got married and their children were baptized and their parents were married and they were so there's quite a bit of grief that goes into that. But anyway, to answer your question, the churches are still separate. Going forward, there is an opportunity for them to merge. There's also an opportunity for them not to merge. Either way, we'll go forward best we can.
As a pastor, you would provide services to the members. You probably provide counseling, advice, support during difficult times. How do you approach that? Is there a difference between the two groups, or is it just mostly being a good human being to other human beings?
Well, yes, to that. I think that's always a good thing. I'd love to see us all sort of carry that as a mantra. Let's just be good. Let's just be good humans to each other. But yes, the two congregations are distinct. They have many things in common, but they have some things different. And I think for Trinity, the disaffiliation process and what came after it has been less traumatic because they had fewer people in the congregation who were really passionate about wanting to leave, and so they're pretty they're a solid bunch. They are solidly they know who they are, and so I think it's been not a pleasant experience, but I think less traumatic for them than for Peace, where they did really have a very large number of their regular members who were very, very committed to the idea of not wanting to be part of the United Methodist denomination. So yes, the ministry to both churches is a little bit different. For example, this coming Sunday at Peace Church, the more affected church, we are going to be spending our Sunday morning time together in prayer, specifically for healing, for guidance, for just comfort. So that whereas at Trinity we'll have our regular service, although I think a number of people are also going to there's a service in the park, community-wide service in the park. So there's a bunch of stuff going on. But just to answer your question, yes, I think with the people who are really hurting, we have to acknowledge that. With the people who are less so, we can start talking a little bit more about what's coming next and start visioning and building some positive momentum and trying to maybe see this as this is what happens a lot of times. Something really difficult, something unwanted, something uncomfortable or traumatic happens in your life, and you think, oh my God, this is the end. And then a little time goes on and you have a chance to, heal. And what you realize is, well, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but actually that helped me move forward in a way. So I think there are some folks who are already able to kind of see that this might be, in some ways, what was needed to break out of some of the status quo, and start looking at new things, which is necessary. I mean, life is change, and if you're not embracing some change and some growth, then I think that's not a good sign. So some folks are ready for that, some folks are not. And we just have to recognize that it's not a one-size-fits-all, and be there for the people who are still grieving. So
Now, do you see in both of the groups or one or the other a vision of what they want? Or does the Greater Methodist Church have a vision? Uh, what does the future look like?
yes, and that's the question where I get really excited, because I think this is a time for renewal. Do I know exactly what that looks like? No, but I do think that there is a sense among enough people that I've been talking to that I feel it's not just me, that it's time to shake things up. It's time to really look at not so much just what's going on the inside and what makes the people on the inside feel most comfortable and is easiest, but to maybe Methodist heritage is all about outreach. It's all about looking to the people who don't have a place to belong, and offering them the gift of community and faith and all of that. So maybe to kind of re-examine our Methodist heritage in the light of the time that we're living now, and see what is it that we have to offer that's unique, that is needed in the community. And I think there are lots of ways that we can do that. There'll need to be a lot more conversation, because it can't just be about what I see and what I envision. It really needs to be what the people here see as possible. But I'm hearing people talk about ideas for engaging with the community. And
What kind of organizations are within the church? Like, are there traditional events and activities that happen each year? Are there groups for young people or elderly people, or?
well, the median age of both of these churches is older than me, and I just turned 63, so I'm thinking median age has got to be at least mid to late 70s. So we're talking about older, traditional kinds of congregations. We have a few young people here and there, and we do have a Sunday school, and people do come. But I think one of the conversations we need to have is how to be inclusive of different kinds of people. And so at the moment, I think everything is pretty fluid. As far as there are annual events. I've only been here since July, so I don't actually even know what all those annual events are. But I know we have them. I know coming up. There's a harvest event, and of course, the traditional holiday celebration: Advent, Christmas, the New Year. But as far as starting or what existing groups, I think this disaffiliation process has kind of scattered everything for the moment. I think everybody has just sort of taken a step back and said, all right, let's see where everything falls, and then we'll look at how to regroup in a way that makes sense, not just for the people who are longtime members, but what makes sense for what we can offer to the community as far as...
This is something, though, I've heard that a similar discussions in many groups, service organizations, and throughout Richland County. Our demographic skews older.
Yep.
People are not as inclined to join and as they used to. The young people say, "Oh, it's all about social media," and so it's a challenge for not just for churches, but for civic organizations, for social organizations, and it's happening, generally.
Yeah, I think some of it is that the expectation is that new people are going to want to come and fill in the holes of the programs we've been doing for years and years. And I honestly think that that's probably not the way this is going to work best. I don't know. Do you know who Brene Brown is? I love Brene Brown. She's she's a social scientist in Texas, and she's had some big TED Talks that have gone viral and all that. But the thing that I love that she talks about is the difference between fitting in and belonging. You know, fitting in means you come and you kind of squeeze yourself into whatever slot is being allowed so that you can be part of the group. Belonging means that the whole group changes to accept you as you are, and your full self is welcomed. And I think that that's the place where we've struggled in some of the things that we do, is that there's a sense that people have to come and fit in. And I would be encouraging people to ask, how do we make it so that people can actually belong? I don't think there's a lot of excitement for people to come and, you know, try to fit into something that they have no ownership of. So I think the idea that this kind of decimating experience has brought us back to a place where things that used to work aren't working anymore. It's been very difficult, but the upside is it really gives us a chance to be in what do they call them, sports teams, have a rebuilding year. Yeah, yes. So we can have probably several rebuilding years. This gives us a chance to, you know, all our seniors have graduated, so now it's time to rebuild with the people we have. So I think it's an apt metaphor or comparison. So we're going to look at how to play to our strengths, take what we have and know that we can do well, and then look for how to welcome, invite, and face that outward towards the community, as opposed to just being faced inward towards each other. So I mean, not that either one of the, it's not that that's wrong, but you need both. And I think that because the denomination and I think the churches have been struggling for so long, it's a little bit like if you have a family that's struggling, you're not inviting company in when that's happening, right? I think for a while now, the Methodist Church, whether they've been aware of it or not, I think that's a little bit what's been happening, is that we haven't been as welcoming as we could be because we're not as comfortable in our space as we'd like to be. And so that is really the good news of this sad split, is that I think it's like when a couple splits, and it's always awful.
His side or her side?
But it takes the tension out of the room. So I think what's left are people who are much more closely aligned spiritually and ideologically, and I think that will make it so that people are going to feel much more comfortable about inviting and sharing, because some of that negativity and tension is gone now. So.
Okay. Well, I thank you for explaining all of this to us. I know there's some curiosity around town. And is there anything else you would like to share about yourself or about Richland County, what you're looking forward to experiencing as a resident?
Well, so far I absolutely love it here. It's, with the exception of wishing that there was maybe having been a little more rain when I got here. Other than that, I can't imagine my arriving going any better. I've been very well cared for. I've been exploring all the trails along the river. I love to be outdoors, so I love to be in a small town, and I've been really impressed by just the stability and the graciousness of the people here. So that's been wonderful. And what I would say to anybody out there who wants to know more, is curious about me or about the church, reach out, get in touch. Our contact information is openly available. You can Google Trinity or Peace United Methodist Church in Richland Center. There's the number, there's the email. Reach out, ask, or if you're really feeling brave, come check us out on a Sunday. We would love to see you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, we hope you have a good Labor Day weekend, and you're looking forward to the Richland County Fair, and that you'll come back next week and every week to watch our town.